Despite the fact that I've made a whole 4 theories on Monsters, Inc., here's another one. It's one of my favorite films by Pixar, and I must say, this video I made is one of the best theories on my channel. I absolutely love the way it turned out. And there was a little something I very briefly mentioned at the end of this video that I think warrants a whole separate video of its own. I've done this before with The Incredibles, mentioning something at the end and then making a whole theory on it. Same with Up and a few others. So don't think of this as a part 2 because it is not. Although not many people seem to mind that I'm making sequels to other recent videos, I just want to point out that really these aren't sequels. I just have to say part 2 in the title because of the way I formatted my channel. So without any more unnecessary ado, here's some stuff I've gathered on our voluptuous little garden snail. Hello, I'm the Theorizer, and Monsters, Inc. is a monster movie. Halloween draws near, there's no question about whether or whether not to do this. But like I sometimes do at the end of theories, in the last couple minutes of my revised Randall theory I posted a year ago, I briefly mentioned something that changed my entire perspective on the film, which is why I mentioned it. Watch that video immediately if you haven't, it is a great one, but what I briefly said was that Roz was the one who spread the rumor that kids are toxic, so that it would let her single out the people who had been kidnapping kids for the past 2.5 years. Since my video, intellectual debate has sparked in my comments, and videos from some other channels also cropped up with similar ideas regarding the CDA, but now it's time to expand on this because it is very, very likely to be correct that she spread this rumor. First, the evidence I presented in that old video. The CDA intentionally labels themselves as the Child Detection Agency rather than the Child Prevention Agency or the Child Elimination Agency. All they are there to do is detect children and collect them. But not likely for the safety of the other monsters because, as we know, humans are utterly harmless to monsters. It's for the safety of the kids. So if the higher-up directors of the CDA were to create this rumor, it would allow them to pinpoint exactly who had been kidnapping children, because those monsters wouldn't worry about touching the kids. As Roz says, she's been doing this undercover work for 2.5 years now. We do in fact know that the rumor has been around for a very long time though. We see it in effect during Monsters University, as it was likely precautionary back then to keep monsters away from injuring kids, but now it's mandatory to capture the ones building the Scream Extractor. The other rather significant piece of evidence I presented was the sheer fact that, on the night Boo escaped, the CDA shot huge spotlights down at monsters only. This would make complete and total sense. They obviously believe that the child will be found with the monsters who have been kidnapping them, so they start beaming down all of the monsters. Something I didn't mention in that other theory though is that I'm pretty sure the multiple monsters they put lights on were actually the same ones from Sully's scare floor, which makes sense. They're looking for the culprits. Something else I did not mention is the blatant hatred Roz shows towards Mike. It's because he and Sully are also suspects, because they too are on the kidnapping scare floor. It's why she is so adamant about their paperwork as proof of what they are or are not doing. And Mike condescendingly tells her it would be better if it all just blew away, which makes her livid, as it's making him an even bigger suspect despite her suspicions of Randall and Waternoose. Even at the end of the movie, she says 2.5 years of undercover work were almost wasted. This is obviously because Sully and Mike intercepted the child and could therefore be caught as the criminals, as Randall and Waternoose slipped right on by, which would render everything she did useless in the end. So already I've just provided some new solid evidence, some evidence that really, honestly stares us directly in the face throughout the entire movie, but only really makes sense after my theory has been proposed. Detective work is so much fun. My god, it's the most awesome thing to do. But there is way more, because I don't think the whole CDA knew that it was literally them that spread the rumor of toxic children. If you look at them, even at the very end of the movie when all is revealed, they still jump and shudder when Boo walks by them. And after returning to the comments section of the, I guess you could call it sort of part 1 to this video, I saw someone with ideas that paralleled mine, and they got super intelligent with the concept, bringing to light how many of the workers simply vacuum up the toys like it's nothing. It's true, and in my response to them, I finally provided an explanation. If the majority of the workers are taught that their work is very dangerous and that they have to find the kids or everyone will die, they will be 100 times more effective at doing their true job that they don't even know about. In the wise words of Psycho Sheep Bellwether, fear always works. This is also Mr. Waternoose's philosophy with his very own workers. Funny enough, the end of Zootopia with the replay of Mayor Bellwether's incriminating words is damn near identical to this movie's end climax with Waternoose's incrimination. Just a neat thing I caught on to. But Roz and her direct team of probably around 10 other high-ranking employees, they know the truth. Kids are not toxic. Something interesting I noted this time I ran through the movie was that out of the thousands of CDA employees, number 2 was the one that went up to Sullivan and asked for his autograph right during the Boo fiasco when she was roaming the halls. I have a 90% guarantee that he was either going to use Sullivan's signature for something, or he was trying to manipulate information out of him as he was in a state of panic upon losing Boo. If he is in fact number 2, that would make him Roz's right-hand man, and he'd be in on it, knowing of Sullivan being suspected as a child murderer. Recently, there have been some people who've looked at the CDA's code, 2319. If you break down 23 and 19 into number letters, each one represents a W and an S. Some say it stands for white sock, but that makes very little sense. It's very, very, very coincidental. But others claim that it stands for the last names of Mike and Sully, Wazowski and Sullivan. But other than it being a possible Easter egg, nobody really knew why their names would be attributed with the CDA alert code, unless, oh yes, you consider my theory that they were always heavily suspected by Roz. The sheer fact that Roz says she's always watching Mike and Sully is blatant proof that she suspects them, and by extension, that my whole theory of her and her supposed team of 10 and her alleged rumor spreading is correct. And come to think of it, at the end of Monsters University, we get a Roz cameo, and she says that after Mike and Sully traveled back from the human world, she'd always be watching them. Which is why I guarantee the CDA's code is referencing them. So if Roz was suspicious of kidnappers even back then, it appears as though, oh my god. Oh my god! Another childhood-ruining moment is now approaching. If you wish to keep your young, precious memories intact, turn back now. Roz apparently is saying here that the kids were being kidnapped way back when, even before Randall got to Monsters Incorporated. And this was a crooked point of my old theory that didn't quite fit, but now I know why. If kids had been disappearing even back then, it makes total sense why the rumors were created. Screw what I said before, it wasn't just precautionary. It was mandatory, even back in the university days. It means that Mr. Waternoose was kidnapping for years, not just when Randall got there. All Randall did was make it more efficient by creating the Scream Extractor. And do not forget what Mr. Waternoose said. He said he'd kidnap 1,000 children before he let his company die. In my last vid, I said that he and Randall were guaranteed to have kidnapped hundreds of children for experimentation and killed them. That's why Roz was investigating in the first place. But if it was done before Randall, it means Mr. Waternoose has been testing new ways to crack children for decades. And his father and his grandfather, who founded Monsters Incorporated, were likely also doing this. The horrific generations of malevolent crustaceans. Tell me right now, what would prompt some random dude to create a door portal and then go into a human's room and then learn that scaring them gives off energy? How would he even know what a human is? How would they learn about the entire world map the humans have? How would they connect portals to human bedroom doors? Unless they'd actually gone in there and founded their company on the death and torture of children. When we look at the files of the children they scare, we even see their pictures and absolutely all information about them. Unless the monsters go in there with a camera, how on earth are these pictures snapped? How do they know so much over the course of only 3 generations of work? How do screams affect energy? None of it makes sense. How would they test these things? It all lies in the Waternoose family and the sinisterness they produce. If this horrific family has been kidnapping for years under the cover of a simple door entering and scaring, then it makes sense why the CDA was formed in the first place. How much do you want to bet that Roz was one of the very first scarer workers at Monsters Incorporated? The smart old bag would have picked up on the malice immediately, and after quitting would have formed a company that claims to assist the Incorporation, when, like Monsters Inc. themselves, the CDA had a secret agenda. But their agenda, Roz's agenda, was to expose them, to bust them wide open for child murder, child torture, and a wickedly heinous conspiracy, all under the cover of a rude old lady who spent years worth of espionage in the most information-filled job possible in the facility in order to figure out what exactly was going on in the walls of the building. Oh hell, this flips my other video completely upside down. It wasn't Randall who manipulated Waternoose, it was Waternoose who manipulated Randall, by making Randall think that it was the other way around. To give Randall the feeling of power, to let him win for once in his life, to expose the deep feelings he'd always had to beat Sully. Go to bed with nightmares or a shattered childhood, I don't mind. I'm just doing this to greatly improve the lore, not break the movie. I love this job. Until next time, I'm the Theorizer. After Halloween, I'll be taking a week-long break, and then back to more epically awesome, bigger and better theorizations.